Hi everybody, it's Marianne again. I'm Martin's wife, and he is indisposed, currently busy at a convention or with other projects, so once again I thought I'd throw my hat into the ring and tell you all what makes me happy. So here it is. So for those of you who may or may not have noticed, because he may or may not have been in frame, I am currently wearing a Cullen shirt from Dragon Age Inquisition, and those of you who follow me on Twitter may be like, huh, Marianne, what a coincidence. You're wearing a Dragon Age t-shirt and about to talk about something you like. I wonder what it could be. Well, you are correct, Mid-Atlantic snooty person. I am going to talk about Dragon Age. For those of you who don't know what Dragon Age is a video game that was produced by EA and BioWare in 2009. Dragon Age Origins was the first in the franchise, and it was kind of a labor of love. They worked on it for like 10 years or something like that, and the game itself the graphics aren't bad, but a lot of the stuff that they used was recycled from Mass Effect in terms of the animations and stuff like that. So you'll see a lot of people talking like this in both games. Cats. But yeah, so regardless, they released Dragon Age Origins in 2009, and it was a huge success, much more so than they were hoping for. And they created two more games since then, Dragon Age 2 and Dragon Age Inquisition, which really should have been named Dragon Age Was Sorry. There's also been a bunch of books and comic books and some animated movies that I'm not a huge fan of, but regardless, it is a full-blown franchise and it's doing pretty well as far as I can tell. Dragon Age is kind of a strange thing for me to be so excited about because I'm really not a huge fan of any sort of exaggerated genre. My sweet spot is sort of like a hint of sci-fi, so I'm super into like dystopian stuff or anything that has a decent basis in reality. Fantasy and really like deep sci-fi and stuff like that is not my thing because they sound silly. I don't know. Whenever I watch Lord of the Rings, I just have to roll my eyes every 10 seconds and be like, you all sound like a bunch of wankers! Ugh! But, to each their own. But regardless, Dragon Age is a high fantasy setting with a very involved lore. And, but the thing that I like about it, and the reason why I think I latched onto it so quickly is because it has, a lot of modern, it has very colloquial writing. A lot of the characters are characters that you would find and you could very easily have a conversation with in the modern day. Some of them, like Morrigan, who is the cleavage lady. Some of them have a little bit more archaic way of speaking, but I mean, it's nothing too exaggerated and it's nothing too off-putting. So, yeah. But regardless, when my friend suggested I play it, I wasn't really buying it. Yeah, it came out in 2009, which is the same year that I was assaulted, for those of you who watched the last video that I did. It had been like 5 months or something like that. So it was a decent amount of time, but I was still pretty upset. I didn't really have a job. I mean, I had a job, but Universal gave me like 1 day a week. It really wasn't anything I could support myself with, and I was still kind of reeling from everything that happened, and at that point I was like coming off of the PTSD and getting more into the really angry part of my depression, where I was like, man, I was supposed to be in Europe for 3 months and I ended up being there for 6 weeks, and there were so many places I didn't get to see, and I still haven't gotten to see, but one day. But yeah, I was really angry and bummed out and spending most of my days kind of like staring into space and just hating myself and hating everything. So my friend I was living with at the time came into the other room and he was like, Mariana, you have to play this game. You don't understand. It's really cool. And I was like, I don't really like fantasy games. And then he was like, no, you don't understand. There's this guy named Alistair, and he's super cool, and really, you'll just like him. And I was like, I don't care. And then he was like, Mariana, I didn't want to pull this out, but you can have sex with dwarven prostitutes. And I was like, sign me up! Where's the keyboard? How do I make a character? Ugh. So, it was a really stupid reason to get into the game, but it got me into the game, and I started playing, and I knew within a couple of hours that this was something that was going to suck the life out of me. So, unfortunately, it did. So I ended up buying my own copy. I bit the bullet, and I did something irresponsible, and I do that a lot. And I bought the game with my credit card, which I was still attempting to pay off with my measly 1 day a week salary. But I knew that, like, I wasn't buying anything, and I was living out of a suitcase, and I was carrying around my old Xbox. Like, I didn't buy anything new, and I hadn't bought a video game in, like, forever. So, and they're kind of, like, you kind of hit a point in your depression where, even playing video games feels like you're doing something constructive. Like, there's a lot of days where I didn't feel like doing anything aside from watching TV or just, looking off into space and, whatever. So the fact that I actually wanted to play a video game and the fact that, I was interested in doing something was like, okay, this is going to be worth, even if this $60 is going to be the $60 that puts me into destitution, it's still worth it because it's something that makes me feel better for the first time in however long. So I started playing this game, and I didn't stop for about 3 months. I did stop to work and go pee, maybe to eat. But there was just something so special about this game that I really loved. And now I joke and I say it's my favorite game that I hate to play because the gameplay is really like, it's not that great, and but the fact of the matter is that, like, the story itself and the characters are so interesting because the lore is so expansive. There's just novels and novels worth of dialogue and of codex pages that you can read if you actually want to invest the time into doing it, and there's so much that they pull from even in the later games. Like, I didn't realize how involved all this stuff was until I started playing Inquisition, and then I replayed Origins again recently, like in December, and I was finding references to things that became a big deal in Inquisition, and I was like, holy crap, like, this world is so massive. So it's just cool to, like, play something that has so much energy and thought and like care put into it. And even though Dragon Age is like, a really kind of like, the combat is just really blocky. Like, it's not very fluid and there's a lot of faults with it, but ultimately, like, the overarching goodness in it outweighs everything else. The other thing I liked about it is that, like, the story is so customizable. Like, there's all these different decisions that you can make that'll affect the end game, and especially at that time there was something really satisfying about playing a game where I could, dictate everything. Like, I was the center of everything and I could control everything. Like, and when you're, feeling like you don't have control over a lot of things, including your own emotions, it's nice to have that little bit of something where somebody will fucking listen to you and somebody will do what you want to do, even if that something is like killing the keeper of an elven tribe. I don't know. So it was just nice to have an outlet. And also Alistair was like Alistair. Every woman on the planet loves Alistair. And even women who say they don't like Alistair. They're just secretly... I'm just kidding. But regardless, like, Alistair's a great character because he's one of, like, the few male protagonists, I think, that was written, maybe not specifically for women, but he feels like it's kind of like the gaming industry being like, here you go. Here's, like, something for you. You can, like, have this little man and you can, like, love him and talk to him and he will do all these cute things at you and toward you and whatever. And after I was attacked, I didn't really... I wasn't deliberately mistrustful of men. It was just like... And I didn't think every man was out to get me or anything like that. But there was this reflexive impulse that I had because of PTSD where I just immediately felt uncomfortable around men in any sort of situation where I could potentially be vulnerable. And, like, to demonstrate the how terrible of a position it was, like, after coming home from Europe, I went on a road trip with my dad because I just kind of wanted to, you know, feel like I wanted to know I was going somewhere and doing something and, you know, not just sitting at home. But we had to stay the night in the same hotel room together as we were going to Gettysburg for 2 weeks or something like that, and then on the way back. And I couldn't sleep. It took me a long time to, like, quiet this, like, panic in the back of my mind where, you know, I felt like I was in danger and, like, I would wake up and, like, something terrible would be happening. And that wasn't... And it was my dad, like, you know, it's not something I can consciously control. But regardless, I think Alistair was kind of the first thing or person or whatever that I encountered that I kind of, like, I don't know, maybe something in my subconscious started, like, to tick, and I was like, okay, a man wrote this character, and a man voice acted for this character. There obviously has to be some men in this world that are like this, and I want to find one, and I want to, you know, be in a relationship with one of them. And I had not been in a serious relationship before that. I had no real... I mean, I had an interest, but everybody has an interest, but ultimately I had higher priorities. I wanted to be an actor, and I wanted to be on my own, and if I managed to find somebody that was interested in me, then that's great. But for the first time, I wanted to kind of take things into my own hands and be more aggressive about my love life as opposed to expecting my love life to just happen. So because of Alistair, I started making this little, like, checklist in my mind, and I kind of started seeing some men and, you know, going on 1 or 2 dates, and nothing really happened. But on those dates, I would kind of make, like, a mental checklist of, like, as I got to know them, and I'd be like, okay, this person, you know, is smart, or is funny, or is talkative, or is whatever. Like, everyone has sort of, like, a, you know, things that make them them. And I would find things that I did and didn't like about these people, and I'd kind of be like, okay, well, how much do I care about these things that I don't like about this person, and how much do I care about these things that I do like as a person, in them as a person. And so after a while, I kind of got my, like, list of ideal things I wanted in a man, and I wanted him to be kind of like, I wanted kind of a chubby guy because I like chubby guys, and I wanted him to be kind of, you know, fuzzy because we're all adults here, and I wanted somebody a little dumb. I don't know. I think it's cute when they're a big dumb guys, but not stupid, just a little dumb. And I didn't want somebody who really talked more than me because I'm super talkative, and, like, it's not something I can really help. I just get really excited and I can't stop talking sometimes. And there's nothing wrong with, I don't like hate people who talk too much, but you have to find a balance in a relationship, and Martin and I both talk and we both listen, but obviously he does a lot more listening than I do sometimes. But yeah, and so and as I was playing Dragon Age, I sort of cheekily was like, man, it'd be cool if he were British, because why not? So, but it wasn't something I was expecting. And then 2 weeks later, I ended up getting a call from a friend of ours who was his name was Curb, and he is an animator, and he knew I was a fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, and he was like, hey, Mariana, guess who I have sitting next to me? And I was like, President Obama? He was like, no, stupid, it's LittleKuriboh, here you go. And then he handed me the phone, and I was like, and I accidentally hit on him by telling him I'd pay for dinner if he were ever in the area, and then he was like, alright. And we kind of kept in touch through my own pig-headedness, and then eventually we ended up getting married. So it was kind of like a little serendipitous thing where, all these little signs kept being like, oh, this is what I asked for, so I guess I'll go ahead and take it. Which is why Dragon Age is kind of so important to me, because it kind of in the last video I was talking about my tattoos and how Tsubasa helped me in therapy and stuff like that, but ultimately there's overarching things that help you, and then there's day-to-day things that help you. And Dragon Age was absolutely one of those day-to-day things where I was like, okay, I know that I can go home and turn on the Xbox and talk to these characters for as long as I want. And there was something really comforting about being able to, because I'm pretty outgoing, but at the time I didn't want to talk to anybody, but I wanted to be around people because it made me feel better. So there was something really comforting about turning on the Xbox and being able to have a conversation without actually talking, without actually having to put any thought in what I had to say, because everything was already written out and I could just select whatever I wanted to select, and I knew exactly what they were going to say to me, but it was always nice to hear them say it again. And the same thing with Dragon Age Inquisition, we're not going to talk about 2. But Dragon Age Inquisition came out last November, so 4 months ago. And I wasn't especially excited about it because Dragon Age 2 was a huge disappointment to me. But I ended up buying it, and I sat down and I played it, and it ended up sucking me right back in all over again. Inquisition, I think, is a better game, but I still love... There's still so many things about Origins that I really love. But regardless, Cullen, who is this guy, he was another, adorable, awkward, cute British guy who kind of, captured my heart all over again. And there was that around that time was when Martin's depression kind of, and suicidal thoughts and stuff like that started really hitting their peak. And it wasn't, obviously depression just doesn't affect the depressed person, it affects the people they live with. And I'm not saying he has to stop being depressed for me or anything like that, but I wasn't completely unaffected, and I needed some sort of thing to keep me steady and stuff like that, because you can't, obviously one of you has to be the rock, and obviously I was that person in this situation, and so I had to figure out how to make it work for me to have that emotional stability that I needed to have for Martin in order to make him do things that would make him feel better ultimately. So Dragon Age Inquisition came at the perfect time because it was another game that I could just turn on and have everything turn out the way I wanted to, and talk to these characters all over again, and have some fucking blonde idiot fawning over me and stuff like that. I don't know. It's fun. It's escapism, you know? So, yeah, Dragon Age holds a very special place in my heart. And I don't know. I guess it's been there for me when I needed it. So, if you haven't played it, I suggest you do, because it's awesome. I'm not going to say it's the greatest game of all time, but it's pretty fucking awesome. But the other thing I wanted to talk about was sex, and not even really sex, but virginity in particular. There's a lot of discussion going on about, like, there's always a lot of discussion going on about the societal expectations of men and women and blah blah blah. You know, women are supposed to be pure and men are supposed to be sexual aggressors and yada yada yada. But the thing I don't think anyone really talks about a whole lot is just, like, how fucking weird people get about virginity for both sexes, or whoever, you know, men, women, anything in between. I don't know. Like, men obviously have this really stupid standard that they're held to, where they're expected to lose their virginity as quickly as possible and be playboys and like all this gross pickup artist shit, where they're supposed to bring a girl home every night and all this other weird shit until they're married, and then they can only sleep with one person. And then women, like, while women are supposed to be, quote unquote, according to whatever narrative we want to follow, women are supposed to be pure and yada yada yada. But I had so many weird experiences where people would just act so weird about the fact that I was a virgin. Like I said before, I never really had a serious relationship before Martin. He was the person I lost my virginity to when I was 23 years old. So, which is pretty old for, you know, somebody in this day and age, I guess. I wouldn't really think so, but apparently a lot of people get down and funky. I don't know what kids say. they do it at a young age. I don't know. And Martin didn't lose his virginity until a much older age than that. We know firsthand what it's like to have people, you know, find out that you're a virgin at an older age, and just go apeshit crazy about it. And like, and it's especially strange to me too that, like, people use virgin and stuff like that as an insult. I mean, sure, there are groups of guys that feel entitled to feminine attention and all this other stuff, and I don't really want to get into that right now because that's a whole different irrelevant issue. But I don't like the fact that we shame people for not having sex, because that's almost as bad as shaming people for having sex, in my opinion. Obviously, there's a whole group of people, asexual people or whatever, that aren't interested in the thing, so why should we think that not doing this thing is the worst thing ever? Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. There was this one time where I was working at Universal, and when I started working there, I worked as a Shrek, so I was inside the suit and waving at children. And as I was getting ready to go on set, like, I was talking to a PA or something like that, and he, I don't remember why, but I mentioned that I was a virgin, because I don't think it's something to be ashamed of. It's just, you know, something that I am. And like I said before, it's not something that I was saving for any reason, and it's not something that I was ashamed of. I just hadn't found somebody that I cared to have sex with. So, this guy freaked out. Like, not like outright freaked out, but after that, he just started, like, targeting me with all of this weird attention. Like, he would hug me and then tell me I smelled nice. And there was, oh, Meatball, I know, it's really gross. Come here. Oh, big guy. But yeah, so, you know, he'd hug me and tell me I smell nice, and there was another time where I was wearing a thin shirt, because God forbid women's shirts be made out of actual fabric, and I wore a tank top underneath to you know, be decent. And he came up to me and he was like, Mariana, if you weren't wearing that little pink tank top, I'd see everything. And I'd be like, yeah, that's the fucking point, you creep. And then there was I don't even... But the last straw, it was like comments like that. But the last straw was I was training a new employee, and this was the first time this employee had met me, and I'm supposed to be setting a good example and being a leader and telling them how to do their job and blah blah blah. And this guy came up to me and like I was standing next to the guy being like, okay, this is your third set. Are you ready to go? You get to go to lunch after this. Yeah, psyching you up. Woohoo. And then the guy came up to me and he was like, is Marianne treating you well? Yeah, Marianne here. She drives me crazy. She knows how I feel because I keep telling her, but she won't do anything. And then he wrapped his arm around the lower part of my waist and like was touching the front of my hip bone and like squeezing me into him, and I was like, this is so unnecessary, and like all because of this thing that I don't know, maybe he thought I was some sort of like, he did like at one point call me like this pure angel or something like that. It was really weird and really gross and all this other crap, and it was just so unnecessary. I talked to my bosses and they talked to him, and shit got worked out eventually. But and though, I mean, like, there's this, my friends too, like, I had girlfriends, guy friends, people being like, oh, we have to make you lose your virginity. And it got really bad right before I went to Europe. And they were like, when you come back, you're not going to be a virgin anymore. And, even the night that it happened, I was assaulted, the guy pulled me outside and was trying to get me to go back to his apartment alone with him. And even in my, like, state, even in the state that I was in, like, alarm bells were going off in my head, and I was like, I don't like this. I don't want this to happen. Shit's going down. So I went into the to the bar, and I tried to like pull my friend back, and I was like, we need to go. She was like, why? And I said, because he's trying to get me to go back and like to the apartment alone with him. And she said, so? And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, can you stop trying to get me laid for 10 seconds and actually listen to what I'm fucking saying? But of course, I'm drunk and I can't vocalize any of that or whatever. I don't know if I was drunk or whatever, but or there was another time where a guy backed me up against the car and like against my car and like kissed me without any sort of provocation or asking. And when I told another friend of mine, she was like, did you go in for seconds? And I was like, what the fuck? What happened to context? Why can't people understand what I'm saying? Ugh. Yeah. And I mean, like, on the male side too, there's obviously like this huge push for them to have sex, which it's stupid. I don't understand why it's anyone's business. And I don't really like the fact that I know I said it before, but I don't like the fact that we use virgin as an insult when it's just something that somebody is. Because we can't go around like, especially feminists when they talk about, fedora wearing neckbeard virgins who live in their mom's basement, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, it's fun to make fun of entitled people, but like, I don't see why we should shame them for sexual aggression and then make fun of their virginity. It doesn't make any sense to me. Just point out the entitlement and move on. And don't fucking bring whether or not they've pleased a lady or a man or whatever into it. It's irrelevant. Anyway, ultimately, I guess what I'm trying to say is don't fret about whether or not you've had sex with somebody or whether or not, people are giving you shit for it. Like, you're perfectly within your right to tell them to back off. And I did multiple times, especially after I was, attacked, because I needed that space more than ever. And yet people were still, like, when I was trying to go on dates and, like, get to know people, Like, there were friends that were asking me, oh, did you get a home run? Oh, did you kiss him? Oh, this, that, this, and the other thing. And I'm like, guys, can you fucking, like, calm your damn tits for 2 seconds? You're trying to, like, talk a rape victim into having sex with somebody on the second date? Like, why? But yeah, don't be afraid. Just stand up for yourself and tell them that whether or not you've had sex is irrelevant. That's the bottom line. Golden rule. Don't call people what you would not like to be called. I don't know. I'm really tired. Anyway, I guess I'll see you guys next time. Peace.